All right, and we should mention that their advisor, Dennis Wardlow, also won a prize of $500. Next phone call, Palm Coast, Florida, on our line for all others. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, caller. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, this embargo, 50-year-old embargo, let me make some comments first. Some people pretend not to understand the effect that an embargo have on a country. Let me give the Miami folks, including the young ladies' parents who helped make this program, is have them fill up their tank every time they need gas in West Palm Beach, in lieu as in Hialeah. Then you would have a sense of what it means to others. Regarding the business, yes, that's in the last 4 years that you have been able to purchase things here. It's a one-way deal, which nobody else in the world do. Cuba can buy food in the United States, but the United States doesn't buy an ounce of anything that Cuba produces. Regarding the other big lie, the donation. Donation is what our group and hundreds of other humanitarian groups do in the United States, but they go through the grinder to get any donation there. And let me close by asking, what would we do if any of the oil-producing countries in the world would decide to apply an oil embargo on us for 3 months, not 50 years? Thank you.
Mr. Tamayo, why don't you take his comments? Any thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure where to start. The impact of the embargo, it's for the first sort of 40 years of the revolution, it was receiving somewhere between $4 and $6 billion a year from the Soviet Union in subsidies. So the idea that the Cubans were spending extra money by having to go buy oil someplace far away. In fact, they were getting much cheaper oil from the Russians. There has been some sort of exaggeration of the amount of U.S. humanitarian aid that goes to Cuba. The U.S. government continues to say that the U.S. is the biggest humanitarian donor to Cuba, which is in fact technically correct, although most of those donations, all of those donations practically, are coming from private humanitarian groups. On the impact of the embargo, it's you know, the Cubans have put out an annual report on what they claim to be the impact of the embargo. I think it's up to about $100 billion over the last 40-some years. As you know, everybody keeps noting, however, the embargo is by the U.S. Cuba's free to trade with any other country in the world. And there are issues when you get into specific technologies, specific pieces of equipment, some of it medical, that is not available to the Cubans to purchase, at least directly from the United States. On the other hand, those kinds of equipments and technologies, etc., are available not just from other countries, but also U.S. technologies available through other countries, such as Panama. Panama is one of the greatest sort of buying centers for the Cuban government. They can go in there and buy anything they want.
On your point, Mr. Tamayo, this is the Miami Herald article from last year. Cuba oil boom may complicate U.S. embargo. As Cuba's oil potential grows, a Canadian company has disclosed plans to export the island's petroleum and set up a possible clash with the U.S. trade embargo. That was a year ago. Where do things stand now on that?
Well, the promise of oil off the northern coast of Cuba is still there. They're exploring. They have not been reporting any recent developments, any finds. I think the expectations are that it will take them at least 2 to 3 years to finish the exploration, and perhaps 5 to 8 years to get that under some sort of production. The issue, or one of the issues, is that some of these things, some of these offshore wells would be not far from the Florida coast, in Cuban territorial, in Cuban waters, but not far off the Florida coast. So there's some concern about environmental issues there, tourist issues in the sense of, you know, if there's any spills, would it create any problems for for Florida, et cetera. But Cuba does have the promise of some huge oil deposits off the north coast. We haven't seen any hard evidence. It hasn't been found yet, but I think the overall belief is that there's a lot of oil there.
A couple more phone calls here. Valdosta, Georgia. Good morning.
Good morning. I got a question. Can you tell me the difference between embargo and free trade?
Mr. Tamayo?
I would think they're total opposites. The embargo, at least as it's applied to Cuba right now, is that we don't, the United States does not trade with Cuba with the exception of, and then there are a lot of exceptions. Food, medicines going to Cuba are certainly exempt. Agricultural products, not just food, but fertilizers, all kinds of agricultural things can still be sold to Cuba. Coming this way, yes, no cigars. But cultural goods are exempt. So you can go to Cuba, buy a painting, bring it back. No rum either. No other products, basically. But cultural products are exempt. And a free trade, such as, let's say, the one that we have with Central America and the Dominican Republic, means that it's not just that those countries agree to accept U.S. exports without any taxes, but that we agree to accept their products without any taxes. But more than that, it sort of regularizes the issue of investments and copyright protection, those kinds of things. It creates an environment that promotes investments, basically.
Okay, our last phone call here for our guest, Clearwater, Florida. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Just tell me what is the difference between the Cuban and, between the Chinese and the Cuban, because I don't see any difference there. Why Cuba, America can deal with China, they cannot deal with Cuba?
Mr. Tamayo?
Well, again, it's difficult to answer that. There is a history of Cuba, of U.S. relations with Cuba, that includes things like the Bay of Pigs invasion, that includes things like the missile crises. There's also quite a bit of change in China. If you look at the economic model in China right now, it is quite different from what you would have in Cuba. China is not 90 miles away, and there isn't a strong exile community or Chinese exile community in the United States as there is in the United States of the Cuban exile community that has fairly strong political power. So. And nobody has ever accused the U.S. foreign policy of being sort of realistic or rational. So I'm not sure that there is any great difference. I'm not sure it makes any difference.
Alexandria, before we let you go, just one final question for you. What has this whole experience been like for you?
Well, this experience has been great. I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. And I've learned a lot about like editing videos and just the whole video making process. I think it's a great competition for other people to get involved in, and thank you C-SPAN for providing that opportunity.
Well, Alexandria, thank you very much for participating and for joining us this morning. Juan Tamayo, also thanks to you for lending your expertise to this topic. We appreciate it.
Sure.
The Student Cam contest is an annual one, and you can go to studentcam.org to find out more information. Thank you for watching today. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.